Okay, December 25th, Sunday, Christmas Day in Ukraine. So we had an air alarm this morning for the whole country, but I haven't heard anything. And now we're getting ready for Christmas lunch and then go for a photo shoot. Just make some family pictures today, that kind of thing. And then go to Lviv city center and see what's around there. So the big news this past week was Zelensky's trip to America, and he was in Washington, D.C. And interestingly enough, our Republican buddies, half of them didn't show up. But, you know, they have about half of the Congress, so half of half is 25%. So 75% of the American politicians on both sides showed up to the speech and are giving support. So we got more than 2/3 in the U.S., but news outlets like Zero Hedge, you know, these pro-Russian news outlets really want to make a big deal out of that, out of nothing. You know, if 25% of the Congress is on Putin's side, you know, we're still safe in America. And I think as Putin, as this goes on, as this war goes on, it's going to get very hard for Putin, because still America is the big economy. Everyone wants to trade with America. You know, you're not going to get much from Russia and China. Already the Chinese in Africa are not well liked. And people, if they had the choice, would rather work with Americans than with the Chinese in Africa, for example. And I think even Indians, if they had the choice, would rather work with Americans than Russians or Chinese people. Well, I mean, India and Russia are about ready to go to war now. Again, I mean, they're always having clashes on the border in Tibet. So they're not friendly. I mean, there's business obviously going on between the countries, but it's not friendly, you know. So yeah, the Americans are always the preferred partner. The Americans and Europeans, you know, are still the preferred business partners. So I used to think time was on Russia's side, right? That they could just keep grinding away and run us out of money. But one thing you have to look back at history. You know, the Americans really have this ability to shift the economy. Like in World War II, they took factories that were making food like peanut butter and spaghetti and turned them into like ammunition factories and even airplane factories. I mean, they transformed the whole economy in a year, and they were turning out like 10 B-17 bombers a day and thousands of tanks. I mean, imagine with the technology we have today, we could put a Stinger missile factory on every corner in America. I mean, we could turn, I don't know, we still have, you know, Chicago's full of food factories that could be very easily, and you know, all these car factories and motorcycle parts factories, they're still all over America. They can be converted and make arms. I don't think the Russians understand that. I mean, we can, you know, the arms are expensive now, but with some mass production, we can definitely get there. And the microchip shortage is getting resolved. The chip shortage, I mean, even that can be resolved with matter of will. They're already building new microchip factories which power all these smart munitions. So I'm pretty optimistic that actually time is on Ukraine's side. I've kind of shifted my view there, because the weapons are starting to flow in. Now we're getting this Patriot missiles. Now this is something I'm not too crazy about. It's a complicated system. It's expensive. It's like requires 3 trucks and all of this. There's a better system out there from Germany called the Rheinmetall anti-aircraft gun, and it's programmable ammunition. So these rounds get shot in the air like 3,000 rounds a minute, you know, and they disperse into clouds of shrapnel. And so it's like trying to shoot a duck with a .22 versus shooting a duck with a shotgun, you know, 12-gauge shotgun, you know, which spreads beads in the air or spreads buckshot in the air and gives you more probability to kill. So it's a shotgun approach where, you know, the Patriot is like a bullet trying to hit a bullet approach. It can be done. It's incredibly accurate. It's working in Israel. But I think the Rheinmetall, and I'll post a link to it, and if any of you have access to congressmen or something, Tell them to push the Germans to send this over, because these could be set up around all of the power plants, all of the power grid, and even all, in a big line across Ukraine, down the Dnipro River, so that anything that's coming in, from Russia can just get shot down. They can build lines of these, or every town would have one. It's a much more cheaper and effective weapon system than Patriot. So yeah, that's my. And then I saw another statistic, and I hope it can get verified. I saw it on Reddit that 5% of the U.S. Military budget has been spent, on Ukraine, and it's reduced Russia's capability by 50%. Now, do I buy that? I buy it partly. I think it's partly true. I think more like it's 10% of our military budget, because I think we've sent already like $60 billion here out of it's like $600 or $700 billion budget, and we've reduced the Russian capability maybe by 20%, because they still have a lot in the tank, but they have to have their, they're worried about the Baltics. We should keep pressuring on the Polish border, the Baltic borders, on the Japan side, so we can tie up a lot of their forces, let's say. So yeah, I think it's a significant return on investment, regardless, of the numbers. I mean, you got to always be a little leery of the numbers here, but I think there is some truth to that. So the more money we pump here, the more we weaken Russia, because it works like this: whatever we let out, the Russians will take. It's binary. If we don't win it, the Russians or Chinese will win it. Like in Africa, wherever there's a chance for influence, or Ukraine. If we abandon Ukraine, the Russians will fill it in. If we abandon countries in Africa, then the Russians and Chinese will fill it in. So we have to have this expeditionary mentality, and we have to get there first. And we are the preferred business partners. It's much easier to deal with Americans and Europeans than it is to deal with Chinese and Indians and Russians and stuff. You always get a better deal. And if you're on good terms with America, the rich people can send their kids to Harvard, versus Moscow University or someplace like that. So that's also like something like elites in those countries want, is they want their kids to have access to the American education system, and just American society in general, to get a house in Malibu and these things. So these are carrots that we have to play. And yeah, I better get home. Have to get ready, and everything, but just want to check in and let you know what I think of this. I think this Zelensky visit was good. It'll be good for Ukraine, and we have to just keep going. We have to keep going until the whole Russian system breaks down, just like in Afghanistan. Keep pushing. It is an investment. We'll get a return on this, because if we lose Ukraine, the Russians are going to have the food supply, and they're going to have a lot of influence over the oil. They can influence Africa and India and all of these countries, with cheap oil and grain, so there's a lot at stake here, and it's paying off. I mean, already the Russians are on the run in many places. They're kind of hardened in the East Ukraine. It is a bit tough there, but Ukraine is doing better than expected. It didn't fall. It's still going. It's still here, and I think it just needs more. We need more of this anti-aircraft technology, so we can close the skies, not with the U.S. Air Force, but with anti-aircraft weaponry. But there's a lot more out there than Patriot that's not being talked about. I'm surprised they don't talk about this Rheinmetall system. And see in the comments below, because it's cool. And I think this is the real solution for Ukraine, is this one versus Patriot. Patriot is it's tough. It takes a lot of training. It's a big system. It's and yeah. I don't know if there'll be enough of it either. So we need guns. We need programmable ammunition. Shrapnel. Flak, as they call it in World War II. They used to put these big clouds of flak in the air, and it was just like exploding rounds, and would put all this metal in the air, and it would go into the aircraft engines, go into the windshield, and just wreak havoc, tear up the planes in the sky, so they need that sort of thing here for these drones. And I think also just standard anti-aircraft with robotic aiming, I think would also do good, like the Sea Whiz system. In the U.S. Navy, they have this phalanx cannons. that are meant to hit incoming anti-ship missiles. It puts out also like 3,000 rounds a minute. And but again, it's a bullet hitting a bullet system. They need more of this like shotgun system, that I think that might be get a better result for less money. But anyway, everybody, all take care, and we'll see you next time.